Hi, Chloe James here from RFI Group at the Australian Mortgage Innovation Summit. Really excited to be hosting a panel today all about innovation, technology, and exciting times ahead in this sector. It's been quite the challenging year, which obviously goes without saying. Really pleased to introduce my panelists, and I'm just going to start with sort of everybody introducing themselves, and then we're really going to jump into these sort of hot topics all around everything that I've just discussed. So Michael, I'll begin with you, Michael Lawrence, obviously from COBA, but if you can just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about the real sort of function that you look after. And I know it's quite a major one for the industry.
Yes, so I'm the Chief Executive of the Customer-Owned Banking Association, and we're an association that advocates on behalf of all the credit unions, mutuals and building societies around Australia, of which we have 63 members with a very big regional footprint. We spend a lot of time with regulators, in particular APRA and ASIC, ACCC, and also the government. And we advocate on behalf of our members to make sure that their things are proportionate and that they're getting a fair deal.
Well, quite a big job. I spent a lot of my career in my 20s with ASIC, so I know that organisation well. Great to have you on, Michael. Jack, I'm going to jump up to you. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thanks, Chloe. So Jack Meredith, Head of Operations with Purcell Partners and LexTech. Purcell Partners manage effectively mortgage settlements for a number of non-banks, credit unions. I think there's just over 20 credit unions, building societies and mutual funds. And also LexTech is our cloud-based mortgage processing software. So we invite all parties to the transaction in and they settle the loan through our proprietary software. My day-to-day is effectively growing our service, ensuring our staff have the tools available to them to settle efficiently, quickly, without hassle to consumers, and also growing our brand and exploring new partnerships and opportunities.
Perfect. Thanks, Jack. Well, the technology and innovation piece comes in hugely with the cloud there. So we'll definitely come back to you on that. Gary, I'll jump down to you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Chloe. Gary Anderson. I'm the manager of member experience at IMB Bank. IMB is one of the larger mutuals in New South Wales. On top of my day job, I'm also the business owner for Open Banking at IMB.
Interesting. Okay, cool. We will definitely come to open banking, hot topic around the world, and interested to see how that's affecting your customers. And finally, Simon, up to you. Quick introduction, and then we'll jump into the panel.
Thanks, Chloe. Yeah, from Newcastle Permanent, acting head of transformation, really focused on transforming and evolving our business. We're Australia's second largest mutual, got over 250,000 customers, and really trying to focus on how do we deliver the best experience in this changing world to them.
Absolutely, and it's all about that experience, isn't it? And that actually is a perfect lead into the first question that I do really want to address with you all, and that is 2020. What a year! Wow. I mean, COVID, it's been just absolutely life-changing for everybody. And I know that you all work so closely with that customer lens on. I'm really interested to hear how you've helped your customers through and continue to do so with, arguably their most important financial product. Michael, I think best to start with you from an industry perspective. How have the last 12 months been for you and everyone that you mentioned, those 63, I believe, members? How have things been going? How do you think the industry's been faring?
Well, Chloe, believe it or not, I'm only 25, so I can spend 3 days.
Me too.
Yeah. 3 days talking about my daily interactions with APRA and ASIC and government, but I will focus on the sector more broadly. And there is no doubt that COVID has made pretty much all ADIs think outside the square and take a more agile approach. And digital is something that's really come to the fore, and internet banking more broadly. It's been driven both by the ADIs themselves, but also by the consumers. And I would say that we've always been down the path of greater digitalisation, but I think that COVID has brought that forward probably 5 years at least. And there is no doubt that you know, as we were staring down the barrel of, you know, possible lockdowns, that became problematic. And, you know, our members had to move pretty quickly around how they continued to service their customers. Just a very quick example. I mean, you know, there are a lot of customers still out there that have the old passbooks that require them to go into the branch to get money to buy the groceries. Well, if you're in full lockdown, that is problematic. So within 24 hours, we had approval from ASIC for our members to be able to write out and actually deliver a debit card to those customers. So it's accelerating the take up of more digital banking, and it was really out of necessity with some of the restrictions and social distancing, branches either certainly on the big end of town closing or being restricted in terms of hours. A couple other things quickly. You know, the banking sector has certainly led the government's Team Australia. Everyone would be aware of that term that the Prime Minister keeps referring to. And in particular, it was around hardships and loan deferrals. Our sector played an active role in that. We were at about 6% of total portfolios that were on a deferred arrangement. That was half of really the broader financial service industry and the majors, and it's down below 2% now. So, you know, the members have done a tremendous job engaging with their customers. There is no doubt through COVID, one thing that hasn't stopped is the love affair Australians have for property, and the property market is going gangbust, for want of a better word, and that's been driven very much in the regional centres as well. And we're seeing a lot of money out of the capital cities move into the regional centres, and also just the activity in the regional centres. And as I've mentioned up front, we have a huge regional presence, so that's playing in nicely. We've also had government through working with the government on the first home owner deposit scheme, the home builder grant, and that's helping to stimulate that market as well. And I think lastly, it's the digital economy, and we know that, again, driven through COVID, we had temporary arrangements introduced by the government around measures for electronic mortgages. What we want to see is that become permanent. So myself and my counterpart from the ABA, Anna Bly, have actually written to the government on that front to try to provide input into the bill to make it possible for ADIs to, you know, witness documents electronically and to do, you know, mortgages over videos and electronically, and put it into the legislation to make it permanent.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Such a really insightful response there. I want to pick up on a couple of things there. I love the point that you've made about the regional centres getting a bit more attention, the market's certainly picking up. If COVID has done, well, COVID's done lots of things, but one of the things it really has done is kind of made people really assess their lives and their lifestyles, and like, where do I need to be? Where do I need to live? How do I want to raise my family? Which obviously a home is the heart of that. Right. So that's really interesting that, and I'm sure that Simon and Gary are probably seeing that amongst a lot of their customers. I want to come over to you both. Simon, I will kick off with you. From your perspective, all of your customers, how have things been for them? And have you had these challenges with, you know, having to go from perhaps a physical, you know, relationship to certainly more digital over the past sort of 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in the thick of the COBA offer around, you know, supporting passport customers back in March and scrambling. We have a lot of passport customers, and you know, suddenly they couldn't come to a branch, couldn't get their money. We actually had a couple of challenges in getting a debit card out, but what we found was we had people. We left all our branches open, but you know, a lot of people wouldn't come in, couldn't come in, etc. And we had to show them how to use online banking. You know, we actually have someone who's been with us 59 years, permanent, and she's showing people how to use internet banking and how to open an account online. So what we had to do was try and, you know, get accounts open. We've got all the technology to open an account online, for example, but our customers didn't really know we had it. And so, you know, to open an account, you know, attach a debit card to it, use internet banking to move their money out of their passport, became a real focus. So it was not so much about the new technology, but showing, or creating new technology, but showing our customers how to use it. And really since then we've evolved it. We've actually recruited some digital coaches in some of our branches and our contact center to really make sure our people are really up on the tools, so they can coach our customers and, you know, make the most of that technology and make sure they're not stuck or tied to a branch. You know, we're in and out of lockdown in various places, and, you know, we don't want to feel that pain again, or our customers for that matter.
Absolutely. So COVID sort of like pushed the hand there, but perhaps that's been a good thing. And as you said, you've had all the technology, but sometimes it does take that almost forced move to make, you know, real, absolutely incremental change. You've just made me think of a product I'm sure that you're aware of. A couple of years ago, Barclays in the UK brought out these digital eagles, and they were, you know, people that would go out amongst the community and teach people how to sort of use the digital products in order to you know, work on their mortgage. Gary, for you, product innovation and things that you've had, I mean, you're head of transformation, right? So you're like right in the thick of this area. What have you had to really sort of transform and pivot and create for your customers when it comes to product innovation to help them through this time?
Well, I think it gets you to look at your digital banking tools, your mobile banking, making contact with your members, surveying your members, but making sure you're doing it in a sensitive way. So we were cognizant that we wanted to stay in contact with our members. Our branches were checking in with our members. You know, we had dedicated phone lines for those who are most vulnerable, who didn't want to get to a branch. You know, like Simon was saying earlier, we were communicating to our members that our branches were open. We were communicating that it was safe to come. How we were making it safe to come if they had to, and at the same time, participating in the passport transformation. The thing that I also think the industry learnt was that it could still function as an essential service, with a lot of its staff working from back office staff, and key staff working from home. So I think it's transformational for the industry moving forward in regards to flexible working, etc.
I love that you've raised the actual internal workings of your organization as well, because this, I mean, obviously we talk about customers and they are your lifeblood and they're so important to you, but for all of you in these huge leadership roles, I mean, it's about making sure your team can work effectively, and I'm sure that's been sort of part of the challenge. Jack, you just mentioned you're sitting in an office now, but you said around 10% of your staff are in the office. I mean, this is your sweet spot, right? And you've spoken about the cloud and how digitally active your business is. Tell me a little bit about how you've had to sort of steer through this time, and whether some of the sort of technological advancements that you've made in the past probably have really helped you be able to stay on top of things in the last 12 months.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I guess a big part of what we've been doing internally has been assisted that we are really operating in a cloud-based environment for our processing teams. It gives them the ability to access everything they need at the click of a button. So, we're really big on wherever you are, if it's in our office hub with 50 people normally, or in our CBD office, or in a remote environment, or an airport somewhere, you have everything you need to be able to assist a client, settle a deal, sign off on a PEXA workspace, for example. And I guess the steps we've been taking have been improving the services we offer. So, for example, we've been offering a digital signing tool, DocuSign, for some time to sign mortgage documents. With the changes that occurred that Mike touched on, that have facilitated, more companies and have the ability to sign more documents, such as deeds in certain jurisdictions, we were able to pivot very quickly and start offering that as a service to some of our clients. That part of it was relatively straightforward. The actual technology side we could implement pretty quickly. The difficulty we found was probably twofold. One, we're obviously a law firm, so then we've got solicitors who are naturally risk averse, which is a good thing in terms of protecting the interests of our clients. But it was very important to be able to offer a very strong client experience, customer advice, and to be able to detail the steps involved in accessing, signing documentations, how and when legal advice is obtained, if there were certain documents that still needed to be wet signed, because again, the jurisdictions had different requirements, and then how our team explains that. And that was really the big part of it. Customer service and providing a strong service to our clients and to consumers really held us in good stead to be able to settle loans quickly and, really not to introduce too much confusion, because it was going to be very simple when we're taking, a sometimes complex process with a number of documents, sometimes hundreds of loan documents that might need to be looked at and reviewed. It can very quickly become more complex than it's worth. But by providing that upfront explanation, by being very strong in our customer service, we saw that we had a very good response, in particular from borrowers, but also from those solicitors representing them. If we were giving them different processes each time, it really would have just muddled the waters and made it much harder than it needed to be.
Absolutely. Communication sounds like it's been a huge part of all of this for all of you in your different functions and with your customers. I want to come back to Simon and Gary here just a little bit more on outcomes of, what you've been implementing over the last sort of 6 to 12 months. Good outcomes, major hurdles or challenges. I know that you've said you're saying our branches are safe and you can come in, but people haven't wanted to. Do you feel just generally both of your businesses have managed to overcome some of those hurdles, and what were they? Was it the sort of communication piece and making sure that people felt safe and secure? Either of you jump in on that one.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Chloe. It's
Sure.
we've certainly done a lot of communication, in many ways, using social media and things as well, but trying to reach those people. And I think we've certainly had a greater uptake in things like opening accounts online and internet banking and so on. But we've also seen, because we've helped people to find it, seen that real increase in things like chat or typed interactions rather than phone. People are finding that as a quicker way of doing it. So we've upped our capability and capacity in that chat space, rolled out a new web chat platform.
And is that a live chat with a real person?
Yeah, so we've got we've implemented. We had it prior, but we've got using Genesis technology. We've actually replaced our whole contact center system. So our chat and our phone and emails, because they're all integrated into the one platform. So it can find whoever's available to answer an interaction. And we've also implemented some Google AI technology on there, so that's doing the listening and directing people into the right support. So we've found that's been a great a great innovation and a great piece of technology, because it's allowing us to find people, whether it be in our contact center with the right skill set or someone in a branch, for that matter.
But anyone can sort of be answering. You've got a team that can answer those questions. Which is
the right person, the right place, the right time. So that's been fantastic. Yeah.
I bet that's not easy to get all the time, but I mean, obviously you're all working so hard to get it.
Yeah.
Something you've just piqued my interest on there, and Gary, I'd love you to respond to this one. Has it been interesting to see different customers who perhaps really weren't those techie sort of customers that would use those kinds of products, take them on and sort of help kind of, I guess, maybe hold their hand through that kind of process as things are a little bit different now?
Yeah, similar to Simon, what became important for us was the ability to be able to manage contact. And sometime before COVID, we'd introduced omni-channel contact. Our contact technology was in the cloud. It meant that we could balance calls out to our branches. So we were maintaining high levels of service. Equally, there was more uptake in live chat, similar to what Simon was saying, simply because, we wanted to make sure that, we were there responsive as best we could for those members who were most vulnerable to, you know, the changes in habit, I guess, as a result of, you know, not being able to get out and get to a branch, which might have been part of, you know, their routine, and they hadn't made the transition to digital.
Yeah, and especially I'm sure your customers perhaps have that, well, I'm sure they would have that customer service executive who they really like chatting to in person, face to face, who they know really well, who have really sort of helped and supported them through that time. I love a chat function, actually, in any kind of experience I have online. I feel like I can sort of explain myself really clearly, and I found that I use it a lot, actually, in lots of different aspects. I think it can be very powerful. It's interesting that you bring that up, and that, I mean, that's something that's a couple of years, right? It's really developed and become a lot better. So that's great that we're sort of in good stead for that. Michael, I want to come back down to you again with the industry view, and I want to really hone in on this customer experience piece, because that's obviously so imperative and so important to everyone. What are some of the great sort of examples of customer experience that you've seen sort of across the industry from any of your members, and things that they've done and achieved throughout this time that's been perhaps quite innovative? Oh, you're on mute. We have to say it. He's not on mute.
No.
Oh, there you are. Now you're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we sure can. We had to get one of those in the panel, didn't we? It wouldn't be COVID if we didn't have that.
So first of all, Chloe, what I wanted to do was just to debunk a myth that was people's belief that the big four banks have the deep pockets and therefore they're more innovative than the smaller ones. I can tell you for a fact that, you know, the first take up of Android, Apple Pay was in the customer-owned banking sector. The first use of ATMs was the customer-owned banking sector. Those first signed up to the new payments platform was the customer-owned banking sector.
Yep.
So being small, nimble, agile, and quick to market, I think we've proven, and Simon and Gary have already given some examples of what they're doing in the innovation space, which is just fantastic. You know, obviously a lot of our members are looking at how do they reduce the friction on the whole customer experience. We've got members that are doing massive transformation programs. We've got others that have been quite targeted around what they're doing. We've got Heritage who are redoing their whole origination platform. The expectation is that, you know, the end-to-end mortgage experience will go from, you know, 5 days to 1 day. You know, more than an 80% reduction in turnaround times. They're looking at the credit assessment process through that as well. So, you know, without exception, you know, every one of our members is looking at how do they reduce that friction. And I think another key example of our sector is open banking. And I know you're going to touch on this in more detail, but, you know, the first deal that was done in the market was by Regional Australia Bank. Now, our sector has a 12-month delay in implementation dates. So the Big Four had to go first. But on day one that the Big Four were ready, Regional Australia Bank was ready as well and did the first transaction. They managed to obtain over 3,000 pieces of data from a Big Four bank, put it into their system, and within 2 minutes had a personal loan approved. And so not only there's a wonderful customer experience, you think about the efficiencies that also drives, and also the ability to open up that competitive environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Onto the open banking piece, Gary, you were pretty interested in touching on that and how that's really affected your business, IMB. A little bit more on that. Did you want to touch on how open banking's been sort of working for you?
Yeah, to Michael's point, you know, the mutuals are in the build phase at the moment, where we're currently, you know, building our solution. We have product data that we're sharing in public space at the moment, and we're currently building our solution to be able to share consumer data. And that, that goes live sort of July 1, November 1, February 1 over the, over the period. Ours is going to be a managed service in the cloud. It means that, we can continue to stay up to date with changes to CDR. As Michael knows, that's still, that's ongoing, ongoing changes to make it efficient and effective. But, my observations about the benefits of open banking is, trust. Financial services is about trust, sharing data. Rather than screen scraping, it's controlled, good security. I think it's the opportunity for IMB to be a better bank. Be more efficient, be more effective. Improve time to yes. Risk-based pricing. All of those things, I think, present opportunity for IMB to be a better bank, and I'm fully supportive of open banking, and obviously it'll move into into the energy, etc. Beyond that.
The everyday customer in Australia, how sort of au fait are they with open banking? I mean, how? Okay, there you go. Let's.
So this is the long game.
How do you? Yeah. So how do you do that then? How do you really get? It's interesting because we've had this conversation for a couple of years now, haven't we? And we can see, those working in the industry, you could really see the benefits and all that. But it's just, if you're not working in financial services, obviously you read about it in the paper, you hear about it, and people are talking about it more and more, and But one, do they know what it means? Two, are they going to utilize the benefits of it, and when? Any crystal ball predictions on that?
Look, I think it's the long game. I think, if you look at the experience in the UK, the early take-up wasn't fantastic. There are some use cases in the UK market now. So I think it's the long game. It could be, and Australia's traditionally early adopters to things. So it's possible it could be quicker uptake, but I think it'll be down to use cases. It'll be down to the heavy lifting of education being done by, both the industry as well as the government. Yeah. The government's got a key role to play in education.
Absolutely, yeah. It needs to be a conversation, and as you say, communication at that higher level, but that somehow really gets that point across. Interestingly, we started this conversation, talking about COVID a lot and how that has really forced the hand of a lot of, digital transformation, ongoing digital transformation, because I know you're all doing so much of it anyway. But, maybe something like open banking, that kind of forced hand a bit more about really sort of seeing benefits might, help spur things along somewhat. But I mean, Australia is ahead of the pack. I should preface this that I'm sitting here having this conversation with you all. You're all in Australia, and I'm obviously an Aussie, but I'm based in Toronto, Canada. And so obviously very similar markets, but very different in some ways. And I can certainly say from this market that all the banks here, and you would know this, but very much look to Australia as a leader when it comes to innovation and digital and those kinds of conversations. I wanted to talk just a little bit quickly here about, and it was something that Michael said that made me think of this, and it was all about sort of transformation and really making change sort of for customers within the business, and also keeping the lights on and doing all your day-to-day usual stuff. I imagine that has been quite the struggle. And the balance, did anyone want to just touch on the balance of that? Simon, you're smiling. You're like, yes that's been tough. Yeah, okay.
Well, I was going to share with you, when we first, around the time Mike and our teams were talking about passport customers, I had this realization that to write a mortgage, our process, our policy, compliant with ARNEC rules, etc., was a face-to-face identification. And I thought, if we're in lockdown and we can't do that, how are we going to write a mortgage? So, keeping the lights on, that, writing mortgages is keeping the lights on. So
that's pretty important. Pretty important.
Yeah,
for you,
right? I know about the passport customers, we can probably sort them, but what about those mortgage? How do we do that? So, that was certainly one of the things we focused on very early was, how do we get around that challenge of face-to-face ID, meet our requirements, change the requirements, and started to implement some digital ID tools really quickly. So, it was almost like to keep the lights on, we had to innovate. You know, how do you collect documents from customers when they're used to bringing them in, you know, in an envelope sort of thing. So very quickly we implemented some digital ID tools, you know, digital document collection processes, and even things like we're working through and we've implemented digital, you know, DocuSign, but also saying, do we need a signature? You know, so rather than just saying, yes, that document needs a signature and we'll do a DocuSign, saying, do you even need to sign a document? You know, so keeping the lights on means signing documents, but, you know, we've implemented processes where we've said, actually, we'll do that. We'll get that signature verbally, you know, we'll just record the call and capture it that way. So through, you know, I see that as keeping the lights on, but it's also innovative just to do that. So, you know, that was really the situation we've been faced with the last year. And, but the pace of change has been, from my perspective, fantastic.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes when those really, you know, these sort of crazy things happen, I'm thinking kind of back to the GFC as well of 2008, and then we've got COVID now, and it's just sometimes these huge things that happen within the economy and financial services are really scary, and you know, there's change, but then they're also a bit exciting because you know, change has to happen. Jack, this is a perfect lead into you, and I know you've been up in that top left-hand corner of my screen, but this is a really interesting part, right? DocuSign, all the signing and everything that you have to do to make sure the legalities are right. How difficult or easy has that been for Purcell Partners LexTech? Like, tell me about your challenges and yeah, making sure that, you know, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I'm glad I got that right.
Yeah, definitely. Look, the DocuSign integration, and we're fully integrated through our LexTech platform with DocuSign. So we were previously offering that service to a number of our clients. The legislative changes opened up new avenues to us in terms of companies now being able to sign certain documents. The difficulties really arose, one, that these changes haven't yet been made permanent. I know Mike touched on advocating strongly to the legislators to make these changes permanent. I mean, Australia in the banking and finance sectors, as you touched on, is probably well ahead of a number of other countries around the world. But in the legal space, we tend to lag quite behind. We've had a number of conversations, and we've got a bit of a partnership going on with DocuSign at the moment, and they've got a number of digital witnessing tools and other exciting tools that aren't actually available in the Australian market, that are only available in the North American market, just because we haven't had the ability to use them as yet, because our legislation has fallen so far behind. So they've been fantastic in, I guess, providing us with support and you know, new tools that we can trial and hopefully introduce as soon as possible. The VOI point is really interesting. I was sitting in the RNEC presentation. It must have been mid the year before, before this all kicked off, where that VOI requirement was going to be much more stringent. So it would hopefully be a bit of an eye-opening moment for the regulator to say that, look, in this environment, things are moving more and more digital. We can't proceed with a more stringent VOI requirement. It needs to be something that's got a common sense element to it, and a big part of that is digital VOI tools. But also, you know, those situations where someone may be in a remote area. There were situations where people in Victoria were having difficulties around the bushfires at the start of last year, who weren't able to do certain things. And the risk to them is that they're going to lose a property, a deposit, their dream home, you know, to sit on such a stringent VOI, you know, level of regulation, where there are other tools available that can all be integrated through DocuSign and provide a much more stringent and risk-free way of signing. It's just common sense that the regulator needs to catch up in that area.
Yeah, Michael, are you seeing the regulator moving on those kinds of things? And because you obviously have such close contact with them.
Yes, I do, but there is an enormous large agenda that's sitting in the government, because what we were very successful during COVID was to put a lot of things on hold so that our members could focus on the customer and dealing with all things COVID. So we're very successful inside government and also inside the regulators to put a lot of the policy and regulatory agenda on hold, and even extend, 3-month extension for our members on the open banking. It's all back in the funnel. They are gearing up again. We're seeing they've already passed legislation around some of the Royal Commission recommendations. So, you know, as I said, it's a big agenda for government and regulators, but they've certainly removed the pause button and they're steaming ahead, which is problematic because the last thing we need is it all coming down the funnel at once.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a catch-22 situation, it sounds like, but yeah, there's just been a little bit going on in the last 12 months for governments around the world to be coping and dealing with. But you know, that's actually quite sort of optimistic to hear that from you. Listen, guys, we've got about 5 minutes to go. I knew this was going to go really quickly. Such a great chat with you. We're getting so much out of it. I wanted to talk very quickly a little bit about tech versus human. Gary, I'm going to come down to you because I want you to jump in here, but a little bit about sort of balancing that tech and human interaction, how you get that balance right, how important is the human still? When COVID goes away, is it all going to go back to the human? Let me know your thoughts there. And you're on mute, sorry.
It's interesting, Chloe, good question. I mean, for some time now, the foot traffic into bank branches hasn't been what it used to be. And that is down to, you know, the transformation to digital. What I think COVID, going back to your point about community, you know, I think that, you know, the local bank, you know, being able to see the local bank, go to your local bank, I think that will has been reinforced through the COVID period.
Well, we'd all like to have some human interaction, wouldn't we?
Yes, yeah. No, I think community is important, and local bank is important. Investing in community, you know, a lot of the mutuals do have community foundations, so those are reinforced during this period. So I think, you know, the local bank will still have its presence. It'll still be important, and it'll play its role. It's just it'll be a different role. It might be a specialist role, you know, specialist, and we're seeing that now. But I think there is definitely a desire for, you know, for our bank to make that digital transformation even stronger as we move forward. It's our focus. But face-to-face is still important for specialist activities, you know, moving forward.
Yeah, and for such a major product, and I love that is your response, actually, because I think that it is still really important, and community is really important. And as I said, I think at the top of the panel, you know, it's arguably the biggest decision you're ever going to make. It's a huge financial commitment. You want to make sure you're getting everything right, especially when the world faces difficult times and you have those, you know, very natural fears and anxieties about what could come out. Right, last question. I'm going to come all the way around because I just want a bit of a crystal ball kind of finish up from all of you. You're all leaders in your field, and I think that you've imparted really valuable wisdom here. A little bit, Simon, I will start with you, and you can kind of hear me ramble on the question, so you got some time to think about it. But really just thinking about what the future looks like for the industry and what the future looks like for you and at Newcastle Permanent, obviously, and yeah, what sort of 2021 is gonna look like, and how it's gonna play out, and how are you going to kind of lead your team through the next 12 to 24 months?
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, we're doing 2021 looks good. I mean, you know, we've started the year well, and so on. There's obviously lots of activity in the property market, and people, regional economies, including Newcastle and the Hunter, are certainly benefiting from some of that. You know, we're doing a number of things. We're actually investing in our branch network, really changing the shape of that network to do some of those more complex things that Gary's talking about, and less of the transactions and the passport transaction setup. You know, less glass, more open, more home loan space, and so on. Certainly digitizing our home loan process, you know, really making that scalable in an industry with interest rates so low. We have to be able to do that in a more economic way. but that retains that customer experience, where we're not a digital bank, we're not trying to be, we need to be digital. But a key challenge for us is how we retain the people in that. We're renowned for our human touch. And so how do we bring our people into that digital world? And so that's something I'm really excited by, an innovation we're working through, so that those people that are in that branch, that local branch, that are renowned in the community almost. We've got, as I said earlier, we've got people that have been working for us for 59 years in branches.
Yeah.
At our but how do we bring them into the digital world as well? So we're working on something really exciting. You have to invite me back next year and I'll tell you about it.
Okay, cool.
But how do we really make that link between digital and our people, and that bring that human touch into the digital world is our next big challenge.
Awesome. Okay, a challenge and something for us all to look out for. We'll keep our eyes on Newcastle Permanent for the next 12 months. Jack, for you, what's the future looking like from your perspective? And obviously, we've spoken a lot about the cloud and the digital kind of ways that you work. Are you optimistic about the future?
Yeah, look, very optimistic. I mean, internally, our team's growing and we've had a great start to the year, and we'll continue to push in that vein. For us, it's add-ons to our existing digital service. So things like a VOI tool, connections so that we can offer information brokerage services, and really just an end-to-end product. So at the moment, we probably undertake 95% of the transaction from loan approval through to settlement. We jump into a PEXA environment or have a paper settlement to finalise the transaction, and we're continuing to further our application to become an LNO in that space, so we can offer those services as well. So it would really give our clients, especially our credit unions, the ability to have a 100% transaction from loan approval in the one environment. And do that, look, we're looking at new partnerships with other service providers and other digital providers, so that we have the state of the art tech right at the fingertip of our clients. And for them, it allows them to, have a platform that they can leverage for a national approach as well. We've seen a number of our clients looking to branch out from, their particular area or their general client base and push that growth as everyone is. So a national tool gives them the ability to do that.
Absolutely, and you can help enable that, and with all the tech that you're talking about, partnered with the sort of human touch that Simon's talking about, it sounds like a pretty sweet spot. Gary, for you, for 2021 and beyond?
I'm similar to where Simon had indicated, where the permanent is focused. We're focused in similar areas around digital transformation. For me, what COVID confirmed was that, it's about being brilliant at the basics. So how can you continue to be brilliant at the basics? The other thing for IMB is that we're moving into a new head office as we speak. It'll be more of an agile environment. So our teams have got used to agile through COVID. So, that transformation for being agile, is a big transformation for us as well.
Yeah, within the business, that's that whole business piece, isn't it? As well as looking after your customers, making sure things are really innovating for your team, which I know that you care about on a huge perspective. Michael, just wrap us up here then. Your thoughts industry-wide. I know that you were optimistic at the start of the conversation here, but any sort of major things we can expect to see within the industry from your perspective, and just your feelings about the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, look, I do absolutely remain very optimistic, but it's not without its challenges. And it's not just COVID-related challenges. I think we need to also consider the current banking environment that we operate in, which is a low interest rate environment, the pressures that puts on net interest margin, the pressures on non-interest income. So, cost to income ratios are very much under focus by all ADIs. When you're looking at your costs, you're looking at efficiencies and driving costs out. So where does technology and digitalization play a role in driving some of those efficiencies and costs out? Then on the revenue side, because there's two parts to a cost to income ratio, how am I going to drive more revenue? And again, there's a digital element to that in terms of, driving new revenue streams. So I think there's that focus from a broader perspective in terms of the sector. For me, it's really around regulation and compliance and the cost burden of that. and what we can do to make sure that the government and the regulators are very clear around competition, but also that regulation and compliance needs to be proportionate. And, you know, it needs to be targeted at the objective, needs to take into consideration size, complexity, and the more we drive that, the more that our members can then invest back in technology and looking at the customer, because at the end of the day, the more and more regulation and compliance, the consumer pays for it in the long run. So now there's a lot of work to do, but we're seeing clear signs from APRA already around proportionality and also around competition. So yes, I'm optimistic, but it's not without its challenges.
Yeah, and lots of conversations to continue to be had. Listen, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed that chat. I think it was wonderful. And yeah, really great to speak with you all. Thanks for joining the Australian Mortgage Innovation Summit. Simon, we'll be coming back to you in 12 months and just to hear about that big, exciting thing we had to hear about. But yeah, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining RFI Group. We really value and appreciate your time and your insight on the call today.
And good luck with thanks for hosting, and good luck with the impending birth.
Thank you very much. There you go. Now everyone knows.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Best,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's some very valuable insights there from both those panels and from CoreLogic on the housing update. And next, it's time for lunch. So please take a break, please relax, but also please go visit our sponsors and the sponsorship booth. Now's a great time to network and catch up with people that you see on the platform. But please go visit our sponsor booths. They're really keen to catch up with you, and certainly you would have heard from some of them this morning already. And so now's a good time to go and meet them and see what they have to offer. Thank you.